Okay. Dan Ambrose, the famous Dan Ambrose from Trial Lawyers University. Welcome to AlderTalk. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Mike. It's great to be here.
Every time I talk to you, you give me more information and insight to how you've created this incredible product, the preeminent educational seminar, twice a year or more?
Twice a year.
Twice a year.
For the bigger conferences.
So if you don't know Dan or you haven't heard of him, you've kind of been under a rock for the last several years. Trial Lawyers University is kind of a confluence of the best trial lawyers from around the country, right?
I would agree with that.
So I'd love to hear about you've come up with so many great concepts. You've put together so many great people that, how do you pull all of this talent together and keep all of us, not from killing each other, but instead supporting each other. But this isn't really scripted. Tell me a little bit about you, please. We all want to know the mind behind the man.
Well, a lot of it comes from when I was young and, I was a criminal defense lawyer and I was trying to learn, and I would go to every conference I could around the country. And if I could just get one little nugget, I was excited about it. But like I realized there's so much to learn. You can't just get one nugget at a time if you go to a conference. You got to get some real learning.
Sure.
If you want to speed your learning curves up to get to where you want to go. And, it was frustrating, and, and losing is horrible. I don't care what kind of case you have. Losing is a traumatic experience in a courtroom, especially when you're young.
Yeah.
It's different losing if you have a lot of great success that came before it. You can handle it better. But if you've never seen success in the courtroom, you just lose.
It's demoralizing.
It's like it can just really destroy the self-image. And, because of that experience, I started, and I spent a lot of time at the Trial Lawyers College. I was there for 12 years, and I learned a lot.
This is the Spence Trial Lawyers.
The Spence, when it was the Spence Trial Lawyers College, now they've separated, and some big to-do that was a COVID kind of thing. But still, the learning was okay, but there wasn't any system of learning. It was just a hodgepodge of ideas.
Right.
And that's when, prior to Trial Lawyers University, I'd started another program called Trojan Horse Method, and because I was just frustrated.
That's where I met you. I remember that.
Right. So I was kind of frustrated with the whole Trial Lawyers College thing, and this friend of mine, I was sharing the frustration with Jacob Norman, who works with Nick Rowley now. He's partners at Trial by Human, Trial Lawyers for Justice, and he's like, "Hey, if you think you're so smart, why don't you start your own program?"
Right.
Like that never even crossed my mind, but I'm like, "All right." And he's like, "Well, if you do, you have to have a cool name." And then that was the kind of beginning of that, and that went pretty good for about 5-6 years. And then I started doing these, like right before COVID, I started doing these things called case analysis, where we'd take a verdict and break it down. And we did it with Chris Dolan, Steve Artezarian. And so that was kind of a different format, but because I was trying to get the strategy. Like I had because Trojan Horse was like a presentation skills type of thing, but you got to know strategy too. And so that was like the impetus, but then COVID came, shut everything down. I was beside myself, like a lot of people were, not knowing what my next move was, because everything I did was in person. And, that's when a really good friend of mine called me and said, "Dan," he said, "man, this is when real business is done."
And I remember that. So, 2018, 2019, your Trojan Horse. Here comes 2020, March, shut down. Everybody's online, freaking out. That's how AlderTalk started, actually, was people asking me 1,000 questions. And I'm like, why don't we just get on a Zoom and answer the question one time for 100 people? And I remember kind of all these different groups were trying to put out videos and interviews. And then here comes TLU. And at the beginning, you were just one of a number trying to jockey. And then we're all so interested of not only how you kind of competed, but clearly have risen to the top. I think most of your competitors don't even do a convention anymore. And here you are thriving. So tell us about, you start 2020, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Here we are 4 years later. What a growth has happened, but tell us about how that kind of grew.
Well, I started out with the because I had no idea what I was going to do. And then another friend of mine was over and we were looking at watching CVN. I was commenting on it. He's like, you should do like a play-by-play analysis and maybe get the trial lawyer to come on too. I'm like, that's not a bad idea. And so that was kind of the beginning of it. And I started doing them like almost every day. And sometimes when I thought COVID was going to come to an end, because they're like, oh, we're ready to open up, it was a false alarm. But then I started doing 2 a day for 2 weeks. I was like, I got to get this content before I lose access to all these lawyers. And but that obviously didn't happen. And so I just kept doing 3, 4, 5 programs a week until maybe September.
And this is you and other lawyers commenting on trials. How did you get access to these people? I mean, I know that, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You got to ask and ask. But, I've heard this my whole career. Mike, you seem to return my calls, and I call another big dog and they don't return my calls. I mean, you have consistently gotten the phone answered by the best of the best around the country. How you do that? Is it your natural good looks? Is it what?
Well, initially I had to rely on that, but as time went by and I got older and started to fade a bit as things happened. But really it was a matter of, I guess, relationships, because I got to know so many of the top lawyers, and then credibility because people come and teach or come and do big parts of programs. Well, they're trusting you a lot that the program's going to be great, that people are going to be there, that it's going to be run professionally and not some rookie experience. And so I think over the last few years of having, I think I've probably done 8 to 10 conferences. I can't have to count them, but I think they've all been pretty great and improved as we've gone. And so people, they're very different than the state and local conferences.
When was your first conference?
Well, my first conference, it was really in LA right after COVID broke. It was a small conference, like 125 people downtown. And it was really just to test out some concepts I had about different lecture format or different formats. But it was a small one. But the real first big one was in October 2021 when we had 750 people at our first TLU Live Vegas convention.
How did you come up with the idea of, I'm going to film these case analyses, and then I'm going to put it on a platform that is accessible to different people, and then create that buzz where people want to do it so that they can get on your platform because it has exposure to so many people around the country? I mean, that's what everybody dreams about. But was there like a tipping point for you where that people started calling you versus you calling them, or?
Well, the recording part, everything, all the webinars were recorded. And so that created content because, people put a lot of time into doing webinars because there's about 3 hours of preparation for a 3-hour webinar. And that's just when we were on Zoom together. I know that lawyer or their associates back in the office had to be going through a lot of materials to cut, find the pieces. So I didn't want people to go through all that work and just have a one-time viewing. It didn't make any sense because the knowledge they were sharing, the strategy and the concepts were timeless. And to have them disappear after they were done would be a sin. It would be terrible. And it was easy on Zoom, but then for the live conferences, it made it, because obviously I'm running, this is a business too. And you have to run a business. If it doesn't make any money, it's not really that fun. I mean, I love doing what I'm doing, but it has to be a business. Because
Right.
If you do it for a living, you do it 12 hours a day. And so this way, by recording it all, it gave me an opportunity to build a platform, which was, really just such a, I consider it really a library for trial of all kinds of cases, because you learn the most and things are most relevant to you if you're working on that kind of case.
And that's a subscription service. I've been a subscriber for a couple of years. And so you can go on there. If I have, like, I'm in an employment trial right now. If I want to find an age discrimination employment trial, there's a webinar on how they won their case and the issues that came up and how they dealt with voir dire, et cetera. It's amazing resource. When you think about, I don't know what it costs. What is it, like $1,000 a year or something?
I think it's $1,300 a year or $139 a month.
So if you think about that, and you have a case and you're spending $150,000 in costs on a big old case, and you have unlimited for $1,300 to learn about all your different cases, it's so well worth it. But the reason I did it was the quality of the people talking that I knew that they knew exactly what they were talking about. The proof was in the pudding with the results. And it's just a great thing. And fast forwarding now, it's kind of, I did my first TLU at Huntington Beach. I was in Vegas.
2021.
That's right. With Nick. Nick called me up out of the blue to come on stage. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Now I'm a true believer, right? And we had a great event last night in LA.
Yeah, that was great. At Nick and Steph's, we had maybe 140, 150 people. I don't know what the total count was, but I met so many new lawyers of various ages from around the city that I'd never met before. And, a lot of them never heard of Trial Lawyers University. And I was like, apparently I got to improve my marketing because.
Well, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to put this on, by the way, as part of my sponsorship, we've got I bought a number of tickets. I've got 3 left. And if anybody would come to TLU Vegas, but for the price of admission, I will sponsor those people to come, at least for the admission. And you will not be disappointed. And I was telling that to some people last night, new people I met. I've made the run, I was president of the local CALA. I've been a speaker at CALA forever. Gary Dordick's got his event. We've got Lanier, we've got TLU, we've got all these different things. And I've seen now how the conventions have kind of they provide different things to different people, right? If somebody's watching this for the first time and they're like, why should I come to Vegas? Why TLU over something else? Why commit to that? What would you tell them? Why should we do this?
Well, there's 3 areas that I really focus on, and that is education, networking, and fun. It all starts with the education, because if the education isn't there, people, everybody wants to transform. If you're at a conference, it's because you know that you don't know everything and you want to be better than you are. So you want to transform into a better trial lawyer. You can only do that through learning. But I am a fan of smaller classes and more specific content, because we all have gaps that we're trying to fill, but the gap is different for every person, and people will get the most out of it, the most change, if they're in classes where they believe they have their biggest gap, whether it's on depositions with you or cross-examination with somebody else, or being in a small group workshop, learning how to lay a foundation or do an impeachment. Because I've been doing this a while, maybe it's obvious, but it's not obvious the first time you do any of this stuff. And unless you have a mentor and you're just trying to figure it out and you get objected to and you don't know why you're objected to, it's frustrating and it's scary. And so education, so we got the 9 lecture tracks, but on top of that, we have 15 different workshop tracks with small groups. So they're interactive, you're on your feet, you're presenting a voir dire, you're doing a cross-examination, you're practicing your opening, you're getting feedback, you're getting, in some cases, getting recorded and getting coached, because all the knowledge is great, but without the physical skills and the confidence to stand up and talk to the 12 people or however many you have and deliver, it's really, you're not going to get to where you want to go. Because I always say, it doesn't matter what you're saying if nobody's listening. So it's all about the presence, the ability to connect. So that's the education component that we really focus on. And, people do such a great job presenting. That's why we record them all, because some people get frustrated with me and talk about FOMO, and they actually get irritated with me because there's too many good things to see. I made too many great options and they're frustrated. I said, well, they're all being recorded.
Yeah.
And you can watch them whenever you want.
I've watched a bunch of them that I missed in Huntington.
Right. And so you could do that. And so that's the education part.
Right.
And then, the networking part, we ask everybody that's coming to write a personal bio written in the first person, who they are in addition to being the trial lawyer. And then we organize those alphabetically by state and give them to everybody who's coming. So you can, if you meet somebody, you don't know much about it, but if you read their personal bio, sometimes you learn a lot about what they had to get through and things in their lives that challenged them to get to where they're here today.
Sure.
Plus, in all the workshops, we have each workshop instructor is asked to have 2 Zoom meetups with their class ahead of time, so people get to know each other. And then besides that, we do, for both the social, the fun, and the networking, we do like an opening party. We're doing it at Omnia patio. It's an incredible venue overlooking the Strip. And then, we do a full breakfast with bacon and eggs and everything. So everybody comes from 7:30 to 9. During the conference, we we have a full lunch from 12:30 to 2. We take 15-minute breaks every hour so people can kind of refresh, but also connect with each
And
other.
quality people. I mean, you can go to a Vegas convention where there's a ton of sloppy ass, crazy ravers, and that may be your cup of tea. And there's plenty of things to go, but the quality of the people that come, of course, everybody likes to have fun, but you're all talking about smart, motivated, really quality. I mean, I meet so many amazing people at your events.
Yeah, I gotta agree and I think it really, like people aren't coming to TLU Vegas. People aren't coming to party.
Right.
I mean, they do have fun. Let's not get, I mean, it's Vegas, but the main reason is to learn. And so by, and then we have themed parties every night too. So Thursday night we have an 80s theme, live music, open bars.
Unfortunately, you were singing at one of them last time, so everybody watch out for.
That's Friday. That's live band karaoke night and a Halloween costume party. So that
you came ready to play right
there.
Well,
I mean, I love theme parties. I love karaoke, and since I'm the organizer of the event, I get to put all the things I love together. Halloween, and so it's people get excited. I'm like, no, I don't get excited until the day it starts. And then it's like, because up until then, it's like getting excited for trial. It's all work. Well, you can never be too ready.
Let me tell you about your workshops. And people have asked me about that. And they're like, but I've tried 100 cases. I know how to do this. And I'm like, no. Steph Curry has shot in the 90% free throw since he was in college, right? But yet you see him every night shooting 200 free throws. Why? Because practice, recreating the event and practicing it. When you're in a trial, when you're in a stressful situation, just like the Navy SEALs say, you fall down to the level of your training. You can't practice picking a jury too many times. You can't practice depots too many times. You can't practice things too many times. And I have learned that, I just tried a case down in San Diego, and in part it was to prepare for this trial because I knew that I hadn't tried a case because cases get kicked out here for like 9 months. And I'm like, shit, I'm out of practice. And sure enough, in San Diego, I didn't have the right documents in the binders where I needed them. I do this time, right? You're always constantly preparing and re-practicing, et cetera, et cetera. And that's one of the things I love about TLU, why I go to every one of them, why I love that you have more than one in a year, because you're constantly retooling, recreating, re-preparing. So
you have to, and because you get ring rust. I mean, I was in trial with Panish during the pandemic, and he had been in trial in a year and a half, and he's like, Ambrose, I think I gotta get back into it. I'm like, coming from somebody that's tried as many cases as him, with his, like, even everybody gets rusty. Everybody needs their reps.
Sure.
And because it's so hard to get reps, one of the things that we teach and have in Vegas as far as workshops are my, TLU skills training boot camps on, voir dire, cross-examination, and opening statement, because people study and they study, but very few people have ever been coached or properly shown how to present in front of a jury and like to develop that connection where it's like, I'm just one of you, instead of like, I'm trying to persuade you. It's like, let me just tell you, where, what I mean? I call it like, it's like almost like a justice trance. It's not anchoring, it's not this, it's not that. It's like everything's focused on one thing, which is getting to the right result that is just. And that just takes, that's why I think people, like you and the Rowleys and the Panishes and the Claggets, no matter how much success you have. I mean, I come and sit in your office, it's like $3.3 billion. Well, I could do the math, and no matter what the percentage is, we're not doing it anymore for the money. And so it's for, I'm not sure, everybody has a reason.
So maybe a little bit for the money.
I mean, but it's, I think for so many of the lawyers at the top, it's just for the fact that it's like, right. That because it's like almost like a competition trance, because it's like a 3-dimensional chess game that forces you to perform at a level that sometimes you don't know you can perform at, when your mind is focused basically 24 hours a day until it's so exhausted it has to sleep for just a minute. As soon as you got the energy back on, it's just focusing on every issue in that case. And I think that's why people love it. or sometimes hate it because it takes over their lives.
So I appreciate you being here. Tell us again, the TLU Vegas next month, October. What are the dates? What's happening?
So it's October 16th through 19th. It's at Caesar's Palace. During during the day on the 16th, there's a golf outing with Claggett. There's a hike with Nick Rowley. There's an ATV riding with Kurt Zahner. Then a couple cross-examination masterclass with Ben Rabinowitz and a trucking masterclass with Michael Cowan. And then opening party. And then the next day, 3 days, it's all day, every day. It's stuff we talked about, having fun, learning, and really transforming our lives. And that's the whole goal, is to be better. Because being a winning trial lawyer is a hell of a lot better than being a losing trial lawyer.
No kidding. So thank you very much for being on AlderTalk. We did it. Thanks. Finally got here and saw the office.
I know. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Appreciate it.